The well of the gods shimmered under the twin suns, its golden liquid bubbling ominously. Around it, robed figures stood in a circle, heads bowed, their voices a low, reverent hum. The high priest raised his staff. "Let it be known, no mortal shall drink from the well and live. Its power is sacred, untouchable. The foolish who dare shall be unmade." The young acolytes trembled as the stories were recited. The last fool who touched a mere droplet had ceased to exist, not died, not withered, ceased. Their people had legends, cautionary tales of warriors vanishing in an instant. Even the most advanced civilizations across the stars dared not trifle with it. And then the human arrived. Dr. Jacob Carter, researcher, explorer, and, as far as he was concerned, a guy who was very thirsty. He adjusted his glasses, looking at the well with mild curiosity. "So, what's the deal with this thing?" the priest gasped. One clutched his chest as if he had been personally attacked. "You must not even approach! The well's power is—" Jacob had already walked up to it. A collective shriek rang out. Priests flailed their arms, some looking away as if merely witnessing the act might kill them. Ignoring the hysteria, Jacob pulled a stainless steel travel mug from his pack, dunked it into the glowing golden liquid, and swirled it thoughtfully. The priest braced for his instant obliteration. He took a sip. Silence. Jacob smacked his lips. "Huh. Kinda bland. You guys got sugar? Maybe some ice?" One priest fainted. Another let out a strangled sob. The high priest dropped his staff, his mouth moving but no words forming. "Impossible," someone whispered. "No, he's already dead. His body just hasn't realized it yet." Jacob took another sip. Still nothing. He turned to the trembling priests. "So seriously, what's the deal? This just tastes like lemon water." The high priest staggered back. "You should not exist right now." Jacob raised an eyebrow. "Well, that's rude." And then he felt it. A rush. Like a double shot of espresso mixed with an electrical storm. His pupils dilated, his hair stood on end, and his fingertips tingled. "Whoa!" The priest scrambled backward. One acolyte whispered, "He's changing." Jacob flexed his fingers. His heart raced, not in a bad way, more like he could suddenly run a marathon, punch through steel, and solve quantum physics equations at the same time. "All right. Now this is interesting." The high priest fell to his knees. "The prophecy, the gods, they have chosen a new vessel." Jacob blinked. "Oh no. We're not doing this." The temple erupted into chaos. The temple was in chaos. Priests wailed, clutching their holy texts, while acolytes scattered like frightened birds. Some dropped to their knees, chanting, while others simply stared in horror, waiting for Jacob to evaporate any second. But Jacob was still standing. More than that, he felt amazing. One of the priests, his hands trembling, turned to the high priest. "What do we do? The humans should have been destroyed." The high priest could only shake his head. "This defies all logic, it is impossible." Jacob stretched his arms, rolling his shoulders. His entire body felt light, electric, buzzing with energy. His vision sharpened, his thoughts raced. He casually bent down, picked up a pebble, and flicked it. The pebble broke the sound barrier. It shot across the temple, embedding itself deep into a stone pillar. A low, echoing crack spread through the ancient structure. The priests recoiled in terror. Jacob rubbed his chin. "Okay, that was kinda cool." A group of alien scholars rushed forward, instruments in hand, desperately trying to measure whatever was happening to him. One waved a scanning device near his chest and immediately dropped it. "This cannot be real." Jacob peeked at the screen. "Huh. Says my heart rate is over 200. That normal?" The scanner's readout was blinking red, flashing warnings, screaming error. The high priest's voice was barely above a whisper. "His body should have collapsed. This is beyond strength, beyond divinity." Jacob took another casual sip. One of the priests screamed. "He drinks more! He tempts fate!" Jacob licked his lips. Still kinda bland. Then, before he could react, his legs moved on their own. With a sudden burst of energy, he launched forward, covering 50 feet in an instant. He skidded to a stop, wide-eyed. Okay. That was new. The temple guards drew their weapons, shaking. One of them, barely able to hold his spear, muttered, He is becoming something else. Another priest whispered, The well does not destroy him. It makes him stronger. Jacob flexed his fingers, feeling raw power thrumming in his veins. A grin spread across his face. I think I like this stuff. The high priest staggered back, gripping his staff as if it could somehow protect him from the impossible. His people had spent centuries warning the galaxy of the well's power, yet this human had chugged it like a sports drink, and now he stood before them, faster, stronger, and very much alive. Jacob glanced down at his hands. He could feel every cell in his body vibrating with energy. It wasn't just strength, it was something deeper. His thoughts moved at lightning speed, his senses dialed up to an inhuman level. He could hear the panicked whispers of the priests, the frantic heartbeats of the guards, even the tiny sound of dust settling across the temple floor. He took a deep breath. It felt like inhaling a thunderstorm. A daring acolyte crept forward, clutching an ancient tablet. His voice wavered. Great One, please, tell us your will. Jacob frowned. Whoa, let's not start with that Great One stuff. I'm just a guy who is thirsty. The high priest shook his head, all overtaking his fear. You do not understand. The well has never granted its power to anyone. Not kings, not conquerors, not gods. Only you. Jacob crossed his arms. Sounds like maybe you guys just never tested it properly. The room fell silent. It was the kind of silence that carried a heavy realization. The high priest's fingers tightened around his staff. His voice was hoarse. Are you saying the well was never forbidden? That it was only waiting for the right one? A shift rippled through the temple. Some of the priests looked at each other with dawning horror. If this was true, then their entire faith was built on a falsehood. One priest broke. Lies! This is a trick! He lunged forward, thrusting a ceremonial dagger toward Jacob's chest. Jacob didn't move. He didn't need to. The dagger shattered against his skin. The attacker collapsed, staring at the broken blade in his trembling hands. Jacob sighed. See, now that was unnecessary. The temple erupted into chaos. Some priests fell to their knees, declaring him a god. Others ran in terror. The guards hesitated, realizing that their weapons were meaningless. The high priest swallowed hard. This changes everything. Jacob took another sip. Yeah. I'm starting to get that. The weight of centuries-old doctrine crumbled in real time. Some priests whispered prayers, others clung to their relics as if they might still hold meaning. The high priest, usually a pillar of authority, looked lost. Jacob ran a hand through his hair. He wasn't looking to break a religion today, but here they were. The liquid energy in his veins still thrummed like a living storm. Every second, he felt stronger, sharper, limitless. A younger acolyte, barely more than a kid, stepped forward hesitantly. What do we do now? The high priest let out a slow breath. We listen. All eyes turned to Jacob. He shifted uncomfortably. Okay, I don't do sermons. And I'm definitely not a god. He held up his travel mug. But this stuff? Pretty good once you get used to it. A murmur spread through the temple. Some priests looked to the well with newfound curiosity. Jacob raised a hand. Before anyone asks, no, I'm not telling you all to drink it. A priest with shaking hands spoke up. But if you could withstand it, perhaps it was never meant to be feared. The high priest closed his eyes, the burden of truth settling heavy on his shoulders. Everything they had built was based on fear of the unknown. But this human had walked in, took a sip, and rewritten history. The realization hit harder than any divine punishment ever could. Jacob exhaled. Look, I don't have all the answers. But maybe the real problem wasn't the well. Maybe it was the idea that no one was worthy. The high priest slowly nodded. Perhaps it is time for change. The temple guards, no longer gripping their weapons, stood unsure of what to do. The acolytes looked between Jacob and their leader, waiting for a decree. Jacob checked his watch. Well, this has been fun, but I should probably find a way home. The high priest bowed his head. You are always welcome here, traveler. Jacob smirked. I'll keep that in mind. Maybe next time, I'll bring some ice. The temple doors opened, the twin suns casting long shadows as he stepped forward. Behind him, an entire civilization stood on the edge of a new beginning.